Well, welcome, councillors, to this meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. And anybody out there who is listening in, welcome. Nobody here in person in the public. So start straight away with apologies. Are there any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Ara, who has a work commitment, Councillor Dark, who's unwell, Councillor Austin, who's a personal commitment, Councillor Hetherington unwell, and Councillor Wing, who's unwell.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Thank you. Item 3 is minutes. To approve the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 13th of September. As a true record. Right.
I propose that
we accept that. Seconded. Anybody want to raise any items? No? Can I have a vote that it's a true record?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Item 4 is the accounts. There are multiple parts to this. 4.1 is financial comparison expenditure to the 31st of October 2023. Are you going to take them in order? Or well, I'll leave it to you.
For items 1 through to 3, members are going to be asked to note the information contained therein, but also there is the opportunity, if you have any questions about what you're looking at, to ask those.
Do you need a bit of time, or do you want to raise anything?
Yeah?
Yep.
I mean, this is already spent. This is spent item, so I think we've had them throughout the year. So I have no questions in relation to that. I think so. I'll propose noting the report, Chair.
All those in favour of noting items 1 to 3? Carried, thank you. Item 4 is to consider and approve quotes to address various remedial matters at the Custom House.
Thank you, Chair. There's somewhat of a chicken and egg position between item 4 and 5. And this is where you're asked to consider and approve various quotes in relation to remedial work at the Custom House. But also the funding is not available yet. And in the next item, you will be asked to recommend where that money is going to come from, which will be considered at next week's council meeting. So with regard to the remedial work at the Custom House, these are things that have come about in correspondence with recently with our landlord, but are things, some of which were already known. So at the moment you've got a quote for a reinstatement insurance valuation of the Custom House. At the moment, it's been suggested that the value that we insure the building for is insufficient, and we can't actually see when we last valued the building. So I think as a matter of good practice, we should get that revalued. And you've got a quote from a suitably qualified surveyor of £1,450. We have a lightning protection system on the roof, and it no longer is up to the relevant British standard. We've sought some advice from TDC about this, and the feedback was basically, in short, you were on the coast, which is more likely to have lightning, and you've got a metal dome with a metal spike on top of the buildings that could be at risk of being hit by lightning. The Custom House is it. And if we don't have an up-to-date lightning protection system that adheres to the relevant British standard, the risk is that we would not be insured. So we've got a quote for £4,892 within that pack. In addition to this, there's a second part to the work, and it's regarding surge protection and earth bond. Which is basically making the connection from the roof. You channel the electricity from the lightning. It's how you channel it safely into the earth. And we've got two quotes here. One for £1,675, and that is from the company who would install the system. It's from their electrician. And then we've got a lower quote of £1,163. And that's from the electrician that has been doing various other remedial work. And I think there is merit in having one electrician who's in the know and understands how all the electrics work within the building. So I'd suggest actually going with that lower quote. So we've had an electrical condition survey of the building, and there's a variety of updates that are required, which are on enclosure 4, which come to £329.89, and they're all detailed. How that's reached is all detailed within the quote that you've got. There's 2 quotes for window repairs. 4 have been sought. 2 companies have not responded. You've already seen one of those quotes. There is now a second one for consideration. And this is where actually, perhaps with the windows on the back of the building are in good health. There's some adjustments that need to be made in how well they open and close, but by and large, they don't come in for the weather damage that the windows on the front do. And, just seeing the photos in the report, there's a lot of damage on the front, particularly front window in that office where it also coincided with there was a leak from the roof, and the water was coming out by the window. So you've got 2 quotes before you for consideration. On meeting with both the contractors, actually the new quote that's before you, the higher one, was a much more thorough and detailed plan of what was going to be undertaken. And that was a company that was recommended by an agent for our landlord. But I think either of those quotes. And also there is currently an overspend in the Custom House maintenance budget of £4,585. And I think all of those things together come to just under £30,000. And I would suggest that we also need it's worthwhile having an additional £5,000, because there's quite possibly going to be something else is going to come up between now and the end of the financial year. So the next item that you're going to be considering is where potentially £35,000 could come from. But at this stage, you're being asked to confirm that this work should be undertaken.
Well, let's do it together. So you want to explain where it would come from?
That's a good question.
No, shall we?
I just want to say, are they proposing to have new windows? Or are they just going to overhaul the existing windows?
It is an overhaul. To both contractors, I did pose the question though, is there a point at which actually it's more cost effective to have a new window rather than going into great depth repairing and renewing? But both contractors confirmed that actually there's still enough to keep, that there's merit in, especially say the inside of the windows, that actually it's still better value just to thoroughly repair what you've got than have completely new.
They open and close at work, do they? At the moment.
Selectively, they will all open and close properly once the work's been done.
Are you waiting for some more information, Chair? I'll come in after that if you want.
No, we can take this first.
Okay. Having been part of the initial looking at this with the town clerk, because of the sudden nature of the owners turning up after quite some time, I could see once they were here and once they were explaining as to what was what. I mean, if we take the lightning conductor, we didn't even know there was one. So that's before, that was years and years ago. I did ask the question as to why it needed upgrading, because obviously up till now it's considered to be fine. And the lighting hasn't changed, but obviously British standards do. So it is that purely that fact that we do need this. And I think, as the intention of this council is to remain in this building, to maintain and to keep the lease, we need to do all that we can to ensure that the building is, one, safe, two, secure, and three, keeps the wind and the water out. So I would certainly go along with the facts that that the windows should be repaired. If they are to be replaced, you would need listed building consent for that. So we would have to go through that process before the window. But you can repair without getting any listed building consent. I would certainly, in my view, Chair, would go with the valuation of the insurance. I would go along with what the town clerk has said in relation to the two quotes that we received for the element to earth, the bond, of £1,163. And certainly, as far as the except the quote for the EICR report that's on the CIR report, and on the window repairs, while we've gone, if you go low with the take the lower price on the windows, then we can afford to reach the point of going with the higher quote in relation to not the windows, the other thing, with the higher quote for the windows, because of the professional job that needs to be done. And I would go along with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Are there any other comments on the work that we think needs doing?
I'll propose that then, Chair.
I'd second.
That's seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. There's nowhere we're getting the money from.
So looking at the budget for the first half of the the financial year, 1st of April to, I was looking at the report to the 2nd of November. It was apparent that there's some income that's not going to be realised, and then also some additional expenditure that will be required. And I provided you with a table of suggestions, suggested virements, which is moving one thing from one budget to another to balance the budget. Where possible, I've tried to suggest top-ups that are come from similar budgets. For example, an overspend on an office equipment can be balanced by an underspend on stationery. They're things which I think should not, which make sense. And then also there's a suggestion on where to find the funds for the work at the Custom House. So of the income that we're not going to be receiving, we've got less bank interest, sale of travel tickets and stock. This is at the Visitor Information Centre, and since the pandemic, the sale of tickets downstairs has reduced considerably. I think there's a combination of things. The post office in town started selling National Express tickets. I think more people are actually just arranging their own coach tickets online. And also it's something that some of our volunteers do find quite stressful to do. So I think we need to realise that there's going to be £3,800 less this year. Ramsgate events equipment, £3,000 less, but then on the other hand, we've realised more money from Charlotte Court markets and market stall hire, so I don't think there needs to be anything done with those. KCC recharge for ground maintenance, they're not going to be paying us £600 for mowing and trimming in some areas because they've taken this back in-house. But on the good side, we're receiving quite a bit from vehicle disposal that we weren't expecting. So we've got £10,000 from the milk floats, £2,000 part exchange for our old transit, and also we've got an insurance refund.
Hoorah!
The additional expenditure, I don't know whether you want me to go through all these individually or whether you've got the table in front of you, but so where you've got a list of things where the approved budget is, what I think the overspend is going to be, and where I'm suggesting it comes from. It is the council that approves virements, so the committee's being asked to consider, is this plan good? Is there something else you'd like to suggest, or any variations before it goes to council next week for approval?
Could you just cover where we're meeting the Custom House
Yes, so
budget from?
so my suggestion is we've got an operating contingency budget with £240,000 in it, and this is not something that you ideally dip into. It is for emergencies, and it's effectively 4 months operating costs. But I am suggesting that we take, actually I said 30, but I think it needs to be 35,000 from this budget, but on the understanding that it is topped up again next year, which is included in the draft budget that you're going to consider in a moment.
Any questions? No? Can I propose that we accept those proposals where we need to accept them now and refer the other decisions to council?
I'll second that.
All those in favour? That's carried.
Thank you.
Next item, item 4, is the first draft of the 2024-25 budget. At this stage, this is largely the work of the town clerk, mainly, and myself, with considerable assistance from Eileen. It will be apparent when you read it that there are considerable pressures on our budget, arising from price inflation, salary increases, and the council's ambitions for the town. All this extra pressure we are proposing, or we calculate, will require a 3% increase in precept, as well as an anticipated 1% increase in the Ramsgate tax base. We won't know the extent of the latter until later in the year. We also propose moving our reserve funds to an interest attracting account. Because up to now we haven't gathered the income. We are of course able to propose changes to the budget at this stage. However, please bear in mind that any increase in the budget lines that you propose will require a corresponding cut elsewhere or an increase in the precept. I'll now hand over to the town clerk to run through what we are proposing.
Thank you, Chair. So what I'm going to run through is the notable changes between the current year's budget and the draft 2024-25 budget. And also some relevant information which is hopefully relevant, things that Councillor Green and the Chair have raised, which I thought I'll let you preempt and let you know the answer. I'm not going to report on the budgets where there's just been a general increase of, say, 5% or so for inflation. This budget will need, the latest that this budget can be approved is at the council meeting on the 31st of January next year. We don't yet know the tax base figure for next year. We usually receive this from TDC in mid-December. And obviously the hope is that if your tax base has gone up, we can realise more with less of an increase for residents. The very first draft of this report, where I threw everything in that I knew about, resulted in a deficit of £220,000. So the draft you are reading has been written with savings in mind. You're being presented with a balanced budget, but this is intended to be a starting point. You do have the power to increase, decrease, change, as you see fit. So with regard to the income, actually for this calculation at the moment, there's a 4% increase, but we're envisaging this would actually be 3% if there's an increase in the tax base. So it's 4 for the sake of this document, but we're hoping if the tax base increases by 1%, it would actually be a 3% increase. Town council precepts are not capped in the way that district and county councils are. We can go higher if needed. So some specifics. The rent received from our tenants at the Custom House is fixed until the following financial year, so that's not something that can be considered. Radford House room hire is only expected for part of the next year because of development work going on. It's proposed that the allotment rents and water contribution be increased by 2%. The sale of coach tickets via the Visitor Information Centre, as previously mentioned, declined significantly. And I think it's now time that we actually start to significantly reduce that budget. Over the past year, there's been monthly craft markets trialled at Charlotte Court, And despite very good promotion by the market manager, with assistance from our own staff, unfortunately the footfall hasn't been great, not helped by antisocial behaviour in Charlotte Court. So the market organiser is currently considering whether to rerun these maybe just in the summer months next year, but I think we should consider that income's not going to be realised again. And also, as previously mentioned, KCC is now taking their grass cutting in-house, so that's an income that we won't have. On the expenditure side, the active Ramsgate project manager's salary has now been included in the staffing budget. In the current year, it's included in the active Ramsgate consultants' fees budget, where we had a new staff member who replaced work previously undertaken by external consultants. We're signed up to the National Joint Council's pay scheme, and so pay increases are driven by external decision makers. The last couple of years, an increase, it's been variable. It's worked out at 8% for some of the staff, and then the staff on the higher wages have got a lower percentage. There's been a flat amount addition given to all staff. To be on the safe side, I've suggested an 8% increase be added to the budget, but I do expect this to be too high. In the current financial year, I didn't apportion the insurance costs correctly, and so it looks like the insurance for Radford House and the Custom House is going up. It's not, it's because I apportioned too much to general insurance, and so in next year's budget I've just moved around where it is within the budget. The level of repair and maintenance at the Custom House this year has obviously caught us by surprise. In addition to the repair work that you've just considered, there's also an outstanding masonry project to be costed, which involves repointing, brick repairs and reinstatement of the balustrades. The technician's going to start getting a quote for this next week. We'll then need to consider whether more money is found to do this in the current financial year or whether it will go into next year's budget. For now, I've put 10,000 in the budget, which really covers annual activities, things like the contract for servicing the lift, the gas safety certificate, the boiler inspection, those annual checks and maintenance, and some rolling repairs, but nothing extraordinary. Now, the town promotion budgets plus beautification are recommended by the Town Promotion Committee. However, the budgets that you're looking at actually have been £38,840 of savings have been suggested by Councillor Crittenden and the Town Centre and Tourism Manager, because I went to them and said, we're trying to find some savings. What could you suggest? I mean, if possible, I'm sure the Town Promotion Committee would like to see these savings undone, but at the moment, the budget that you're looking at, there's a saving of £7,500 by removing the palms from the arches. Reducing the new projects budget by £11,000, and that's for deferring the obelisk project until the next financial year. There will still be work on the obelisk project undertaken next year, where there needs to be planning permission, and there'll be legwork undertaken, but the plan is to actually move the doing of the project into the following year.
Right. Sorry, what is the Audit project? Am I the only one thinking that?
Lights, it's lighting,
Oh.
lighting the.
Right. Because I was thinking, have I missed something there? Right, fair enough, yeah.
But I have suggested that there's scope for having £3,000 for other town promotion budget work to be identified, and this could be things like the planning permission and the drawings needed for the obelisk project, or if there's some initial legwork required on other town promotion projects to be identified in the year. £6,000 has come out of the budget to not hold the New Year's Eve fireworks display next year. Our town centre and tourism manager has said that actually even £6,000 should be very concerned that is now insufficient to host that event. The Christmas and summer lights budget is usually £22,000, which is around £18,000 to the contractor who supplies annual lights, and then some repairs and maintenance. I had initially increased this, thinking that next year, when we're out of contract with our usual supplier, could be the year to look at doing something new. But actually, no, in the drafting of the budget, it dropped down to 20,000. There's also a further 4,340 reduced from other areas of the town promotion budgets. Smaller pockets of money across marketing, events maintenance, VIC, work with TDC and the town website. There are no specific activities that won't be undertaken, but a general belt tightening across all of those budgets.
Can I just make a small comment? If we're removing the palms from the arches, could we leave something in to actually spruce them up so that they look fresh?
Well, actually, I am aware that TDC has a project that they're planning to give all of the arches a tidy up, and they're looking to close the road, and TDC would be removing graffiti and bird detritus. And the technicians, our contribution, we will litter pick and weed. And so the arches are hopefully then having really quite a nice spruce up, which would maybe then time quite nicely with having the palms removed.
Okay.
It did occur to me though that we would then need a budget to remove the palms.
Just to comment on that. That was a thought that went through my head when we were discussing it, but we also have the existing budget that's moving palms from here to there and over there and whatever. And my hope is that if we're going to have to move at least a couple of those palms out because they've outgrown the space in order to put a couple back in. So I'm actually hoping that we might even save a little bit on that rather than it costing us more to remove those 4. Is it 4 up there now? I've lost. I think there's 4 up there. So I don't think it should cost more, but we will need to relook at all of the things that are being moved around at the same time. But because we're not putting 4 back in, I don't think it should cost us anything. We just need to find someone to put another 4.
Get rid.
So the reduced town promotion budget that I've just run through, that is what you're looking at in the figures. The undersubscribed Ramsgate fund has had a £5,000 reduction, but the events fund has increased by 11,000. A civic service is going to be reintroduced into the civic calendar. So currently, I think the civic functions budget is high, but then if we add the civic service back into the calendar, I think that budget is correct. one thing that would be desirable is to have a mayoral vehicle. Access to the town sergeant's personal vehicle is limited, and currently the mayor's car is being utilised. However, this may not be possible or desirable for future mayors. We did look at getting a leased electric car, and I've got some costs in the budget in front of you. I think that the first year cost was £6,776, but actually this did come back out of the budget again. It could have been a pool car so that all staff, the journeys taken for Ramsgate Town Council during the day are all done within an electric vehicle, but it's not at the point of a must-have. What I have done is put £1,000 into the budget for occasional hire car for if there's a trip here, a trip there, when the town sergeant's vehicle and the mayor's vehicle are both not available, that we could maybe look at just hiring a vehicle for the day.
If we used the town sergeant's vehicle or the mayor's vehicle, do they not get expenses
Yes.
for that?
We pay mileage.
Get car allowance.
We pay mileage, yeah.
Yeah, where is that in here?
Yeah, it is, yeah, I've just seen it.
Oh, it's under there.
Specific functions,
Okay.
mileage has came.
Oh, like,
Civic allowance, expensive clothes, event donation.
okay.
So that was an idea that went into the budget but came back out again. The current accounts and allotment software is dated, slow and complicated, and we're also concerned about how it's hosted, which is on a server, a third-party server. It's not cloud-based, which is a rather dated way of doing things in terms of software these days. The increased cost in account software and allotment software would be to complete our 5-year contract with the current provider, keeping the previous accounts and allotment information live for 1 year, while starting a new contract with a provider that the Deputy Town Clerk and I have researched and met with, which is a much more modern and user-friendly setup. But at the moment, we will bring the specifics of that contract to the council for consideration. At the moment, it's the budget in principle. TDC have not yet billed us for the May 2023 election. Hopefully this will happen soon, because it will inform how much saving going forwards. We're expecting it to be about £25,000, so it'd be quite nice to get that bill to see if we've got the right amount saved or not. I think the ring-fenced neighbourhood plan budget remains sufficient. The highways improvement plan again is recommended for top-up. But how we're going to reach a conclusion on which project to progress, I think it still needs consideration. There's a new operating contingency top-up budget, so this is to put back in the money that we're taking out for Radford House repairs and maintenance. Custom House. At the moment, there are insufficient funds to top up the future capital projects and asset acquisition reserve, but I'm expecting there to be some more underspends this year, and what I'd suggest is whatever the balance to be carried forward is at the end of the financial year, that is the figure to, that goes into topping up the capital projects budget. There's a new climate change task group project. This initially started out at £10,000, but has been reduced to £7,500. This budget is to implement the climate change task group's plan of actions. There remains a project contingency, including legal expenses budget, which was previously called a miscellaneous budget. It's for the unknown projects that will present themselves in the year to be able to kind of work up new things. So you're asked to consider, before this goes to council in January, is there any legwork to be undertaken? Is there anything to be researched and to come back to you with?
Yeah, Councillor.
Obviously, we have been beginning to take over these people. Obviously, we know that that's a costly thing to actually do. There is a report coming to TDC Cabinet on it next month, I believe. And at which I believe that it would be a positive from TDC to transfer over, including the concession, which would help us enormously. So I think that needs to be, if you like, appendixed to the draft, with a rough estimate of what we believe funding will be, so that members can then make an informed choice when it comes to council.
Yeah, I mean, there's two aspects to that, aren't there? There's the capital cost
Yeah.
and the recurrent
Yeah.
to keep it running.
Yeah, revenue, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Chair. On that same note, this council did also agree to take over the bandstand. I don't know if there's any costs expected with that.
Did you have something to add? Yeah, okay.
So the latest with the bandstand, and it's not just the bandstand itself, but that kind of that area, is that TDC are prepared to offer a lease on the area. They initially asked if we would like a 6 month or 1 year lease, but I'm mindful that if we were to get any grants for refurbishment work, we would need to have a long lease. So I did go back to TDC to ask if they would consider, say, 10 or 15 years, with a break clause, if that was desirable to TDC, and awaiting a response.
I think absolutely right. There's no way that we should take a year's lease. And as you say, if we did get the grants, do it all up, and then and it goes back to TDC. Thank you very much. So I believe it needs to be a minimum of 10 years, because that then gives the council the time to do the necessary work, to apply for grants, and also then to get the events and everything that our residents would like to see. So I think we should stick to our guns on at least a minimum of 10 years for a lease. Thank you.
Looking at the site, the railings around there are in appalling condition, and would need, if we were going to take them over, they would need serious work.
Well, if I could chair a few...
But also the floor, what was the dance floor, is cracked, severely cracked.
Yeah.
When it rains, it floods at the bottom.
And that would be
Electric.
Leave my bottom out.
And that would be a considerable amount of money that we couldn't do, I would suggest, without a grant.
Chair, if I may, I think in relation to the railings, which would not be part of the transfer deal of the bandstand, but I'm happy to have a word with the head of service at Thanet District Council that maybe we can get the small works team out to paint them.
That would help.
Thank you.
Hopefully, but I think a lot of them are beyond that.
Yeah, well, they need to be looked at anyway.
Yeah, they need to be looked at.
Yeah, so I'll do that tomorrow.
Yes, Councillor Nixie.
First of all, I wonder what advantage TDC think they're going to get from a 6-month lease. What exactly do they think they're going to get out of us or anything else? Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would you even bother? That surprises me. Well, you know what I mean? It's like, so like 6 months would go and then nothing would happen. So what did they gain out of that, other than the fact they didn't have them for 6 months? I'm just looking at the Ramsgate Fund, and we always say it's the undersubscribed Ramsgate Fund, and I understand that. And I'm thinking back to when we've passed things for the Ramsgate Fund, because we're putting in events. Don't get me wrong, events are vital for the town, and I understand that. And actually, you get a lot of bang for your buck with events, don't you? Because a lot of people are putting their own time and effort in. I understand that fully. But I do think back to the times when we've done the Ramsgate Fund, and we are aiding people in the upkeep of the town in lots of, you know, funding applications that we've done, and when times are sort of like tied to the rest of it, I just wonder whether we ought to either promote it more or do something with it, because rather than just doing events the whole time, which are lovely, we're not putting any infrastructure back into the town, and I think that's sort of like what that fund did a lot of the time, and I'm conscious of it would just be events, whereas it isn't sustainability. And I think we need to consider that at some point. Anyway, that's my penny's worth.
Councillor.
We could, hold on a second.
Thank you.
We could take that forward to the next meeting. Have all thought about that. Is that?
It's sort of like, well, I don't want to make a decision now. I'm just thinking, I think we ought to be...
It's not very fixed now.
No. I just do think we ought to look at why it isn't being subscribed towards, and also what the impact of not having those applications in is doing to the area. Because often people would ask for assistance, you know, with patching up buildings and stuff like that.
That's usually what it's for.
That's quite vital, I think, to the area, because otherwise, you know, we lose that.
Town clerk. Is it on this?
So this might well tie in well with the report that Councillor Crittenden's asked for, which I was planning on taking to February's Finance and General Purposes Committee, actually looking at how a bigger picture of how we administer and manage the grants budget. And so actually the purpose of the grants could also be part of that discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mackinson.
The town team usually gets a grant, and out of that grant, it has met for years, so I don't know why I'm saying we give grants for shop fronts, which actually answers your thing. Like, for example, the Wooden Box Cafe got town team grants and other ones.
Our grants,
But I don't know where the town team comes in this.
it doesn't, it's a TDC creation.
Oh, is it? All right, okay.
But our grants usually go to scout huts and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
No, it was just on the infrastructure in town.
Councillor Crittenden.
I'm not sure if I heard Councillor Orban correctly, but the railings are part of the grade 2 listing for the whole of the bandstand. So they're listed as well as the bandstand.
Yeah, but they might be
And there
listed
are-
separately to the bandstand, but they don't go round the bandstand, do they?
No, but they're part of the site, and
Oh, is it?
I'm 99.9% sure that they are part of the overall listing for the whole thing. So if we get the bandstand, we need the railings will come with
We'll have
it.
to, so we need to try and get that done before we get
And
it.
we did meet with Tony Marmor, and that was one of the things we pointed out to him, explained to the railings. We will follow that up, but I just wanted to clarify that as far as I'm aware, they are part of the whole thing, so we would get them, should.
Can we move on? What do we need for this?
So at the moment, in advance of January's meeting, I think we've got, look at costings for the lift. Councillor Alban to raise discussion of the railings at TDC for the bandstand. We want a minimum of a 10-year lease for the bandstand. And then I think as an aside, the Ramsgate Fund and the grants to be considered at next F&GP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I propose we
Yes.
do that.
Community Aid magazine, it's 6,000 was the budget last year. We've got income of £2,832.36. Was that all from adverts? And why has the budget gone up to 6,300? Is it because printing costs have got more expensive?
Yes. What's that? Sorry, where was the income that you were looking at? Because we don't get income.
No, I think that's
The income, second of the 11th, £2,832.36. Do we get the income from the adverts that are included in it? No. So what's that income then?
Sorry, where?
Well. Is Rob budget,
Yeah.
first page? Community Ad magazine, budget.
Yeah. Oh, so no, that is the expenditure. That's the expenditure to date in the.
So that's what's the budget is for next year.
Yeah.
And the income would be, so what's the income?
So
No, the income just refers to the top
Yeah.
dozen lines or so. There's income at the top and then expenditure lower down.
So
I
the
understand that.
No,
So the budget for the current financial year is 6,000,
yeah,
of which 2,832 has been spent.
right.
Right, okay, so. yeah.
But next year, Dean estimates that it'll cost 6,300. So increased printing costs, printing and paper.
Right, so they've confirmed that, have they? That
Yeah.
they do need that.
So we could effectively, at
Take
the
it
end
somewhere
of
else.
this year,
Take
at the
it
end of
somewhere
this financial year, we could effectively save money out of that budget then. There'll be money, we won't spend it all. Is that all?
Well, I think we are expecting it to come to 6,000 by the end of the year.
6 months spend, so a 6 month spend still to go. So
Yeah, that's right. I'm just asking.
it will be spent by.
Is that, yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Because we're paying extra to serve Newington at the moment.
Yeah.
That extra 300 may not be enough because printing costs, paper costs.
The people who are the people that are doing the community advocacy, are they looking at different quotes for different printers? Are they cutting their costs? Why don't we just accept what they've given us if they're going to be extra £300?
I believe that Dean has explored different qualities of paper and using recycled paper with them. I'm afraid without him present, I'm not sure.
We can get a report to the next meeting on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Chair, if I may, I mean, really, we're paying a magazine that gets delivered. Why don't we have an online magazine? Why can't we just have that online? People come to that, why can't we do that?
But it covers a different.
Yeah,
I think people do like it as it is.
I mean, I think it's always a time personally.
Particularly elderly people, chair. They like it. It's a good advert for the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question?
I mean, you could have it online.
Councillor Driver.
Yeah, so it's about actually given to my flats, and it's about, they go to one in every box, post box, mate, every gets one. And they also leave a big pile in the reception area.
Clean it up.
No, but that's just in the recycling at the end of the week. So I think they could probably cut these costs a bit. Plus, I just like to say that I used to get these things done online, and I used to get literally, it was 10,000, and it was 60 page ones, and it used to cost me just over £1,000, all colour. So I'm pretty sure there's a bit of...
Did you say online?
Yeah, but it's from Germany, that's the thing. So that's printed in Germany, but that's cheaper than getting...
I see. You got
postage.
printed through an online.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So that's obviously.
Councillor Critter, is this on this topic?
I wanted to just remind this committee that the previous council 2 years ago actually increased the budget for the community ad magazine because we increased the distribution. Because originally we only had like a 4/5 of town distribution. And I think we actually concluded, if I remember rightly, that was popular and successful and decided to continue with it. So I'd be reluctant to cut it back. But anyway, thank you.
I know about these.
Yes, sir.
I used to work in publishing.
So obviously it's not, you're not just getting the printing costs, you're getting then laying the pages out. So I know Dean does some of it. Sort of the editorial
And the editorial's done here, but you know, all the printing costs and probably the sort of some of the other stuff, delivery of it. So it's not just the producing the copy. But it would be interesting to see a breakdown of
the costs for each edition.
Yeah, what could we report on?
Right,
Well, I think we're probably subsidising the adverts,
probably.
which is a good service for the town, isn't it? Yeah, I'm reluctant, I mean, this is a commercial firm that do this. I'm reluctant to suggest that they go to a different printer because they've probably got their own arrangements.
Yeah.
But we'll ask Dean to do a report, yeah?
Yeah.
So, is that it? So, what do you need from the committee? Just to endorse the...
Yeah, so that these are actions, considerations to be brought back to January's council meeting.
I propose that. Councillor Nix is seconded. All those in favour?
Good, lovely.
Thank you. The boundary wall.
Yeah.
Next item is item 4.7. To consider and approve a quote to repoint the boundary wall at Montefiore, Woodland.
We've had discussions about the repointing of this wall for some time. The quote received is under £5,000, so I
Is
haven't...
this the flint wall?
Yes. At the moment, there are some urgent works on one end of the wall, which I have approved, which are within my delegated powers. Because the quote is under £5,000, I haven't sought multiple quotes. So you are asked to consider the quote contained within your pack. We do have responsibility for this wall. It is next door to a pavement. We need to keep it in good health.
Makes sense. Just to add to that, I think the initial grant that we received, along with taking over Montefiore Woodland, has now been exhausted. Is that with this money or without?
So that is excluding this quote. But if we approve this quote, and also I think we'll have some tree work coming up at Montefiore Woodland, that will then exhaust the funds that we received when we took ownership of the land. Back to the draft budget, I have suggested that going forwards to next year that we put I think £4,000 into Montefiore Woodland. At the moment, we've got £5,911 in the budget.
Any comments, questions? Yes.
Obviously, being my board, I've looked at the wall, and Clark's right in the first part. In common, really, needed repairing. It's almost on the verge of being dangerous. The rest of the wall, it's just maintenance, really, urgent maintenance. The only thing I can add is that in the Woodland also, there are 2 piles of reclaimed building material that matches in with the wall, the front wall only, and just the fact that if there's any other repairs in future, need brickwork or flint work, it's there.
Use that.
And it can be collected up and put in the container as storage.
Safety,
That sounds like a good idea.
yeah.
Question, yeah, is the wall listed? Is it a listed wall? It's not in a conservation area, is it?
No, it's not. I don't know if the wall is, but it is definitely not in the conservation area.
Yeah.
Any other?
It was just looking at the quote. Do they not separate out the VAT? Research.
It wouldn't surprise me if this contractor's not registered for VAT. I think it's a small, a sole trader.
So we're not paying that and we're not reclaiming it.
Yeah, there's no VAT number on there.
No, okay.
Thank you. So I'll propose that we go ahead with that.
Yeah, I'll second that, Chair.
All those in favour?
Got to be done.
Next item is item 5, Radford House. To receive a verbal update from Councillor Nixie, progress and activity.
Okay, so, the first thing I'd like to say is, obviously this is an ongoing project, it's not one that we can sort of like pull out of at any time, and I promise you, Councillor Green and I are doing everything we can to keep the costs down in that place, including looking at a room and thinking, right, we're keeping the carpet, we're keeping the wallpaper on it, we're going to have a lick of paint, whereas before, ideally, we'd have done as much as we can. We are not, we are paring things back to the bare minimum. Just so that we know, because as we know, costs are going up. Right, so lots happening. Conservation management plan has been completed. This is quite an exciting bit of work for the building and for us. It will be forwarded to you. The history of the building is very interesting, and please do read it. For example, on your way to the council chamber, you walk past an oil painting of Richard Thompson the Younger, the deputy mayor of Ramsgate in the late 1700s, who at the time, being deputy mayor, actually lived in the house. And for 3 generations, the Thompson family lived at Radford House. All 3 generations were involved in the borough council. So we do have strong links with the particular building, which I think we ought to make the most of, as much as we can, especially in the information that we give out to the public in the building. So there's a link going over 250 years. Just for information, things that Councillor Green and I are thinking, because obviously we want to showcase as much about Ramsgate Town Council, Ramsgate history and so on and so forth, in a building that is still being hired by the public, being used by community groups and so on and so forth. There are, as you can imagine, little sort of like Victorian alcoves, if you imagine that stuff, not that they're Victorian, they're older, but shallow, almost barely usable for lots of things that would make excellent display cases with the door open, where you could actually have information about what's there and information about Ramsgate, which could be sort of like a rolling information board, for want of a better word, and museum display cabinet. That's just by the by. The conservation management plan is definitely worth a read. So on to more practical matters. The asbestos above the kitchen's been removed. We had a bit of an issue with the asbestos. We had a survey for it. Then when they came to remove it, it wasn't where it was meant to be, and so on and so forth. It was, not to bore you with the details, but now it's been removed, and the parameters of the asbestos in the main loft spaces have been confirmed, ready for loft installation to be installed. Sadly, that was a thing that held us up for a while because it's asbestos. Right, a schematic of the heating system's been undertaken and of the wiring. And again, slightly delayed on this, but slightly delayed also because we repurposed the electrician to fix the Christmas lights. So that's what held that up. But these reports will inform the mechanical electrical setup of the building, which is not intended to change, but we are hopeful that there are some historic pipes and wires that can be removed to tidy the building up. So the long and the short of it is, let's say you go into Radford House, the downstairs, for example, you've got wires and pipes everywhere. It was a case of like, right, what can we get rid of? What do we need? And also what's historical? So in the top room, cast your minds to that top long room, there's like about 3 different red, siren-y type bits. One is, it's a fire alarm, but the other one is, in Ramsgate, there's a fire alarm. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just ours. No, it's a case of like, right, we could pay to get that removed because we don't want it, but that means Councillor Green and I are like, we're not paying for anything to be removed unless we have to. And secondly, it's historic, so we are keeping it. So although it's clutter, it's actually valid clutter, and we want to make use of that to the best we can, and also not pay to have it removed. So there's all of these sort of like little tweaks that we're trying to do, again, to keep monies the best that could be, but also make the history of the building apparent to people. Surface drainage in Radford House has been an absolute pain in the neck, quite frankly. Water runs in all the time. We are constantly rodding drains every day. I say we, that would be the technicians, because I'm not, obviously. A drainage survey has identified that the problem stems from part of the drains that's not accessible because there's a manhole cover that was tarmacked over. Yeah, and so obviously that needs to be dug up and the blockage cleaned from underneath. So things like that. But of course, it's a major basic issue we need to sort out. The water ingress problems at the top of the building, however, have been resolved, and the building is watertight at the roof. Town Clerk did an outstanding job of getting the community ownership grant application in, and we will find out whether we have received anything at the end of December. Now, that grant is up to £350,000. Exactly, Councillor Orban, fingers crossed, because wouldn't that help everybody out? Do you know what I mean? So I can only thank Town Clerk and all those that helped her. And we continue for obviously various projects, not just Radford House, but to look for further grant applications and funding from anywhere. So please, if you hear of anything, just pass it on. Where are we? So, on a slightly sad note, our project manager, Andrew, who is with AP Cost Consultants, and he's done a sterling job of things and held our hand a lot of the time throughout the process of this, is leaving AP Cost Consultants. But his partner, Paul, who's a chartered surveyor, is picking up, and we're working with him. Andrew is with us until Christmas. Paul will be taking over from them. From then, and obviously, I mean, Andrew will be invited to the opening and so on and so forth, but it's just a bit of a change of personnel on that side of things, but we are working with them both to make sure everything's handed over smoothly. The trial usage, the meantime use that Susie's been doing in the building has been outstanding, and I'm sure people have heard of all sorts of events that have been going on. To give you a list, and it's not comprehensive at all. It's there's a refillable van that now visits twice a month that people can go to. Puppet making workshops during half term. That's yoga taster sessions. East Kent Artists Open House. A ghost hunt. A couple of those, I think, they were very keen to come along and see what extra paranormal activity there was in the building. Poetry extravaganza celebrating Emile Circum. Ramsgate Society Design Awards that I attended for us. The weekly chat time sessions, they continue to be an absolute hit, from pleasure gardens to art galleries and walking the Camino de Santiago. But I mean, people absolutely love those. And it is getting a whole different crowd out and about on Tuesday, coffee morning time, lunchtime, and it's really good to see. So that's a real win in that case. Sketch club, darkroom workshop, artist walk and workshop, late night Christmas market in December and more. The best part about this, of course, is, I mean, that we really are hitting every part of the community that we could. I don't think we've really missed anybody out, and that is absolutely lovely. People are constantly coming up to Susie, asking for information about the place, how they can use it, at different groups. I'd like to see some statistics possibly with regards to disabled access and stuff like that, because I know that's something that we are working on. And we have, how many rooms are being rented out at the moment?
5.
5. We have gone to town to say, look, you know, these are viable. We know for this to wash its face, the rest of it, this has to you know, we have to charge certain groups. We've done an awful lot to test the meanwhile use, with the idea that obviously, like, people, community groups and that take it on, but other groups that are using it are paying. I mean, that list that I read out there aren't, you know, just the freebies. People are paying to hire the space for those sorts of things, and people are keen and interested. So again, it would be later at date, we'd revise the figures and so on and so forth. But it's a win at the minute with regards to that. People want the space open. That's great. And thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
I'd just like to say, having gone to a couple of things, having about unannounced, and especially like the artists who are now there, it's really interesting to talk to them. And I just think Susie's done a fantastic job. I've told her that. You know, I just think it's been brilliant. And all out your elbow, I say.
The other thing too, oh, you're very welcome. I'll pass it on to Susie especially. I think the other thing that's really interesting too is it's our physical vehicle of letting people know what the town council do as well. So, for example, recently the Foreign Embassy, if anybody knows them, they're this sort of like, you know, pop-up mysterious, you know, restaurant that comes along and uses the space and so on and so forth. And then when they did their social media work, you know, they mentioned Radford House and blah, blah, blah. And I said to them in a private message, I said, and the town council, please don't forget the town council, because without the town council you wouldn't be doing this. And they're like, oh gosh, yes, of course. And they included it because people need to realise that this is theirs and it's ours to help them and so on and so forth. So it's working very well to let people know what the council are doing. And I think that's a valuable insight to everybody there.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Yes, you mentioned Richard Thompson.
I did.
We got a painting of him in the stairwell.
Yeah.
I suppose at one point that probably hung in Radford House.
Who got hung in Radford?
No, the painting.
It's early days. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
I continue.
You're welcome.
Move on. Item 6 on the agenda is a tree audit. To receive and note the health and safety tree audit quotes, which would now be obtained from tree surgeons. The work detailed therein.
Chair. Excuse me, I'm going to go, Chair. I'm going to start coughing now.
Yep, 10 o'clock.
Thank you. So this is the report that was authorised by the council. I can confirm that the work where there is ivy to be removed in certain places has been undertaken by the technicians. The next step is to go out to tender for the removal of some of the trees which are dead. And I'll come back to you with quotes to undertake the work that's been highlighted in this report.
Any comments, councillors?
I've started noticing just how much of it there is around, and how many of our traditional ordinary hedges, now people have got ivy hedges in their front gardens instead of privet hedges and things like that. So I've got my own private little wall of this ivy going on. And I'm selling my little ward to as many people as I can. It's got its place, but there's just too many trees where it's just growing out into the branches and everything. That's
It's predominantly ivy,
yeah.
And
It's such a shame.
TDs didn't know about it. And they're about to, well, they have appointed a tree officer. But they haven't said who it is yet. But I have got someone going to deal with the ivy on a tree in the graveyard, which overlooks the back of Sycamore.
Now is the time to do it because apparently it's the last flowering plant that bees like.
yes.
So it does have a value, but it will take over. And it's just
We're dealing with it all over the place.
Councillor Ramsden.
Yeah, as for the ivy in the Montefiore Woodland, the volunteers do tackle it once every month. And that's one task I undertook. I tell you, it is so tedious. Cutting back ivy and then pulling out the roots. I tell you, it's absolutely tedious. As for the woodlands, I mean, at the moment, we've got dead trees in the woodland, but there is a life and death cycle at the moment.
Yeah.
There's 5 new elms that are growing. There's a hornbeam planted. And that Peter Hasted of Thanet Urban Forest had a look in there the other day, and he said it's a perfect example of urban woodland management. And it's all working well there.
Good. I read somewhere where there's a special way of removing ivy. You just remove a section.
You've got to take a metre. You've got to just take it up a metre.
Yeah.
But they said to us, well, you might have to pull the roots out, otherwise it start growing again.
Got to pull the roots out. You can stop it. You can get the rest of it gone. Believe me.
You've got to take a metre, at least a metre off.
You've got to take the roots off, and then the rest dies, and then you can just pull it off.
Yeah.
You have to wait for it to die, otherwise it will break up the bark, or if it's brickwork, it will damage it if you take it off while it's still living.
Anyway, are you happy that we get quotes for, is that what we're doing? Getting quotes for,
also ivy's not really the biggest problem at the moment. With the sycamores at the moment, they're dying from sooty bark disease, which is caused because of the droughts. They put the trees under stress, and that's the biggest killer of sycamores at the moment in Thanet, is sooty bark. If you actually go into Georgia Six Memorial Park, you can actually see black patches on the sycamores.
do we know what we've got there in
In Park or the Woodland?
Woodlands? That we have?
In the Woodlands, I haven't seen it, but when we have the next meeting, I can ask Dave to have a look. Dave Crouch, because obviously he's the one.
Is it mainly sycamores?
It's mainly just sycamores, really, that's suffering from it.
No, I meant in the wood. Is it mainly sycamores that are in the wood?
Oh no, there's a mixture of everything in the woods. If you actually look at that ash tree, that's number 3, you look at it, and I was quite surprised. I thought it was for the chop, but it's actually decaying from the inside. But he's recommended that it's going to be pollarded, but then it gives it an extra 10 years. But eventually it will die. But then I suppose that's all part of the life and death cycle.
Yeah. Okay. What do I propose? That we note the amended quotes.
Yeah, second.
Yeah, seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. Final item is item 7, Climate Change Task Group. To receive and note the minutes of the Climate Change Task Group meeting held on the 25th of October, and to consider and approve the action plan progress report. Okay.
So as you stated, Chair, if there's any questions within either of these, there may be things that I can answer, but it's possibly more likely that I would need to go away and ask the proper officer for this group to send you an email with the answer when he's back.
The Climate Change Task Group is conscious of not wanting to add to people's burdens by creating a whole new meeting. So we've been holding them before council meetings. I think we were holding them at 5:30, but we're making it even easier for councillors to attend. We're moving the start of the meetings to 6 o'clock before a council meeting starting at 7. So hopefully all of you will be able to attend. We're hoping that works better.
7, this one.
Any comments? No? Thank you. Can we note? Is in favour of noting and approving the action plan? All those in favour? Thank you. And that closes the meeting at 8:20.
Thank you.
Thank you.